If you can disappear from the world and feel lighter because of it. Imagine waking up one morning and realizing your phone hasn't buzzed, not with messages, not with invitations, not with expectations. And instead of panic, there's relief. A strange, almost forbidden calm. The silence doesn't feel like loneliness. It feels like oxygen. You don't miss people the way you're supposed to. You don't ache for connection the way movies and self-help books insist you must. And that terrifies you, because what kind of person feels better when no one is around? Here's the paradox that keeps you awake at night. You don't have friends, yet you feel freer than ever. Is that emotional numbness? Or emotional honesty? Is it healing, or something quietly breaking inside you? Imagine walking through a crowded street where everyone seems to be performing an invisible role, laughing on cue, nodding at the right moments, exchanging stories they've told 100 times before. You used to be part of that choreography. You learned when to smile, when to agree, when to pretend you cared just enough. But now, standing outside it, you notice something unsettling. Most of those connections were never peaceful. They were heavy. So why does distance feel like relief instead of loss? This is where the discomfort begins. Because society has trained you to believe that isolation equals failure. That being alone means something is wrong with you. That humans are social creatures and therefore must crave constant companionship. Yet your lived experience contradicts all of that. When people drifted away, or when you quietly stepped back, you didn't collapse. You exhaled. But here's the question you've been avoiding. What if the relief isn't because you hate people, but because being around them was costing you your sense of self? You start replaying moments in your mind. Conversations where you shrank your opinions to keep the peace. Friendships where you became the therapist, the fixer, the one who listened but was never truly heard. Gatherings that left you drained, overstimulated, and oddly empty. You weren't alone back then, but you were fragmented. And now? Now you are alone, but you are whole. That realization opens a dangerous curiosity loop. If solitude feels better than connection, does that mean connection was never healthy to begin with? If you feel calmer without friends, does that make you broken or brutally self-aware? And if this relief continues, what does it say about the way most relationships are built? Here's the unsettling contradiction most people never confront. You can be surrounded by others and still feel trapped, yet completely alone and finally at peace. The mind struggles with this because it violates everything you were taught about belonging. You were promised that friendships would save you, that community would complete you, that more people meant more meaning. But what if meaning was being drowned out by noise? Notice how the relief shows up quietly. It's not joy. It's not excitement. It's the absence of tension. No more decoding mixed signals. No more social calculations. No more pretending you're okay when you're not. You stop asking, "Do they like me?" and start asking something far more dangerous. "Do I even like who I become around them?" That question lingers. And here's where the curiosity deepens, because this relief isn't permanent. It's fragile. Part of you wonders if it's a defense mechanism. Another part whispers that it might be clarity. You oscillate between empowerment and guilt, between peace and suspicion, between thinking, "I'm finally listening to myself," and fearing, "I'm slowly disconnecting from the world." You don't talk about this openly. People romanticize loneliness only when it looks poetic from the outside. But your experience doesn't feel poetic. It feels honest, raw, uncomfortable, and strangely right. So what's actually happening inside you? Is your mind protecting itself from emotional overload? Are you unconsciously rejecting shallow bonds in search of something deeper? Or is this relief the first symptom of a deeper psychological shift, one that most people never recognize until it's too late? Here's the part that should make you uneasy. This relief didn't come from gaining something. It came from letting go. And letting go always reveals truths we weren't ready to face. Because if being without friends feels safer, then maybe the real question isn't why you're alone, but what you were surviving before you were. And that leads us directly into the hidden problem no one talks about, the psychological force beneath this relief. quietly shaping your identity without asking for permission. If you want the full truth, hit like so this story reaches more people. The hidden problem and its psychological/philosophical roots. The relief you feel isn't accidental. It isn't random. And it isn't weakness. It has roots, deep ones, buried beneath layers of psychology, philosophy, and social conditioning. To understand it, you have to look past the surface story of, "I just don't like people," and confront something far more unsettling. Many relationships don't exhaust you because you're antisocial. They exhaust you because they force you to betray yourself. This is where the hidden problem begins. Psychologically, humans are wired not just for connection, but for belonging without threat. When connection becomes unpredictable, emotionally demanding, performative, or conditional, the nervous system stops interpreting it as safety. Instead, it reads it as danger. Subtle danger, but danger nonetheless. This is why your body relaxes when people disappear. Carl Jung once warned, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." What most people miss is the implication. To be accepted by others, we often reject parts of ourselves first. Over time, that rejection accumulates. Each social interaction becomes a small negotiation. Which version of me is allowed here? Which part must stay hidden? Eventually, solitude feels like relief, not because you hate others, but because no one is asking you to split yourself in half anymore. Philosophically, this conflict runs even deeper. Friedrich Nietzsche observed, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." Modern society glorifies community, but rarely questions its cost. The tribe today doesn't demand physical conformity, it demands emotional compliance. Agreeable personalities, digestible opinions, palatable pain. If you are introspective, sensitive, or unusually self-aware, these unspoken demands feel suffocating. And here's the part most people never articulate. Social success is often rewarded for emotional dishonesty. You're praised for being easygoing, for not making things awkward, for keeping the peace, even when the peace costs you your truth. Over time, the psyche adapts. You withdraw, not dramatically, not angrily, but quietly, selectively. You reduce exposure to environments where you must constantly self-edit. And when the noise fades, relief arrives. Existential philosophers saw this coming. Jean-Paul Sartre famously wrote, "Hell is other people." Not because people are evil, but because being seen through the expectations of others can trap you in an identity that isn't yours. When every interaction turns you into an object, someone defined by roles, labels, or past versions, you lose the freedom to simply be. That's why isolation feels clarifying. But here's the unresolved tension. This relief isn't the solution, it's a signal. Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of concentration camps, argued, "When a person can't find a deep sense of meaning, they distract themselves with pleasure. In your case, it's not pleasure, it's peace. But the mechanism is similar. The mind retreats when meaning and connection disappears. This is the hidden problem no one names. Modern relationships are abundant, but meaning is scarce. Connection is constant, but authenticity is rare. And so your psyche does the only intelligent thing it can, it pulls you back. Not to punish you. Not to isolate you forever. But to protect something fragile, your inner coherence. Yet this withdrawal comes with a price. Because if this relief continues unchecked, it doesn't just protect you. It begins to reshape how you see people, trust intimacy, and define belonging itself. And that's where the unseen consequences begin, quietly, invisibly, altering your life in ways you may not even recognize yet. Comment, truth, if you believe she deserved justice. The unseen consequences. At first, the relief feels clean. Surgical. Like finally stepping out of a room where the air had been slowly poisoning you. But relief has a shadow. What no one warns you about is that when the mind learns peace through absence, it begins to associate presence with threat, even when no threat exists. This is not a conscious decision. It's neurological conditioning. Your brain is a prediction machine. It learns from patterns. And the pattern it has absorbed is simple. People equal tension. Distance equals calm. So it adjusts accordingly. Cognitive psychology calls this negative reinforcement. The removal of discomfort strengthens avoidance. Every time you choose solitude and feel better afterward, your nervous system logs it as evidence. Over time, it stops asking, "Is this person safe?" and starts assuming, "They probably aren't." This is how protection slowly becomes limitation. Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote, "A man can be himself only so long as he is alone." What he didn't fully explore is what happens when the self becomes so accustomed to solitude that it no longer remembers how to expand. You don't just avoid shallow relationships, you begin avoiding potential depth, too. Not because you don't want it, but because your system can't distinguish between danger and discomfort anymore. Here's the unseen consequence. Emotional range begins to narrow. You feel calmer, yes, but also flatter. Less reactive, but also less surprised. The highs disappear along with the lows. You tell yourself you prefer peace, but part of you quietly wonders when curiosity stopped knocking. Neurologically, this is tied to the brain's threat detection circuitry. Social interaction requires vulnerability, micro-risks, emotional exposure, uncertainty. When those systems stay dormant too long, they don't reset gently. They atrophy. What once felt exciting now feels intrusive. What once felt intimate now feels invasive. And society reinforces this withdrawal without noticing. Culturally, independence is celebrated. Protect your energy. Cut people off. You don't owe anyone access. These ideas contain wisdom, but without balance, they become ideology. They turn boundaries into walls. Self-respect into emotional isolation. Healing into permanent retreat. The most dangerous consequence isn't loneliness. It's identity calcification. You begin to define yourself as someone who's better alone. It becomes part of your self-image, clean, controlled, safe. But identities are sticky. Once adopted, they resist change. Any impulse toward connection now threatens not just your comfort, but who you believe you are. Friedrich Nietzsche warned, "He who fights with monsters should see to it that he himself does not become a monster." In this context, the monster isn't people, it's emotional rigidity. The very defense that saved you can harden into something that quietly limits your future. You may not notice it day to day. The consequences are subtle. Missed chances? Declined invitations you didn't even consider. A growing sense that the world feels distant, not hostile, just muted. And then comes the most unsettling realization of all. You are no longer afraid of being alone. You are afraid of being disrupted. That fear doesn't announce itself. It disguises itself as maturity, as discernment, as peace. But peace without engagement slowly turns into stagnation. This doesn't mean your relief was wrong. It means it was incomplete. Because protection was only the first phase. What comes next, if you choose it, is rebellion. A redefinition of connection that doesn't cost you yourself. And that requires breaking a rule you didn't even know you were living by. Type yes if you want to see all targets hit at once. The rebellion, how to break free. The rebellion does not begin by forcing yourself back into crowds. It does not start with putting yourself out there, or collecting people like proof of healing. That's the old rule. And it's the wrong one. The real rebellion begins the moment you realize this. You were never rejecting connection. You were rejecting cheap connection. What exhausted you wasn't people. It was relationships that demanded performance instead of presence. This is where everything flips. Most advice tells you to override your relief, to treat it like a flaw. But rebellion means listening to it, without letting it harden into exile. The goal is not to return to who you were socially. The goal is to evolve how you relate. Viktor Frankl once said, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." Your relief created that space. It paused the noise long enough for you to notice what actually drains you, and what doesn't. Now comes the counterintuitive move. You stop chasing connection, and you start curating resonance. Resonance doesn't ask you to shrink. It doesn't rush intimacy. It doesn't punish silence. This means fewer people, but real ones. Conversations that don't require masks. Relationships where you don't rehearse your words in advance. The kind of connection that leaves you clearer afterward, not emptier. Historically, those who broke free from social illusion didn't become isolated, they became selective. Nietzsche withdrew not to disappear, but to think. Jung isolated himself during his psychological crisis not to escape humanity, but to understand it. Solitude was not the destination, it was the forge. Carl Jung wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around you, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you." Rebellion, then, is refusing relationships where what matters most to you has no language. Practically, this shift looks subtle but radical. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You allow pauses in conversation without filling them with performance. You choose depth over frequency, truth over harmony. And most importantly, you allow discomfort back in on your terms. Not the old discomfort of self-betrayal, but the new discomfort of growth. Because here's the hidden payoff: meaningful connection always contains friction. The difference is that this friction shapes you instead of erasing you. You don't abandon your relief. You refine it. You turn it into a compass instead of a cage. And once that happens, something unexpected occurs. Connection stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like an extension of your clarity. That sets the stage for the final realization. Because beneath everything, solitude, relief, withdrawal, rebellion, there is a truth so simple and so destabilizing that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it changes how you understand loneliness forever. Share this video so communities understand what was hiding. The ultimate truth, the final, most powerful realization. Here is the truth most people never reach, not because it's complex, but because it dismantles too many comforting lies. You were never meant to belong everywhere. That sentence alone can feel dangerous. Society survives on the promise that connection is universal, that if you just try harder, soften more, explain yourself better, you'll finally fit. But the relief you felt when people disappeared wasn't a flaw in your psychology. It was a signal of alignment. Jean-Paul Sartre once wrote, "Man is condemned to be free." What he meant was this: the moment you stop outsourcing your identity to others, you inherit responsibility for who you become. And that responsibility is heavy. Heavier than loneliness. Heavier than silence. Most people choose noise instead. Your relief came from stepping out of a system that rewarded self-erasure. From no longer being mirrored inaccurately. From no longer negotiating your existence in exchange for belonging. Solitude didn't give you peace, it returned it. But here's the final loop that must be closed. The goal was never isolation. The goal was integrity. When you are whole, connection becomes optional, not addictive. You no longer seek people to complete you, distract you, or validate you. You meet them from fullness, not hunger. And only then does friendship stop feeling like a burden and start feeling like a choice. This is why forced socialization failed you. This is why withdrawal felt like relief. And this is why the fear was never being alone, it was being unseen while surrounded. Arthur Schopenhauer observed, "We can regard our life as a uselessly disturbing episode in the blissful repose of nothingness." But the deeper implication is this: when life feels like disturbance, it's often because we're living out of alignment. Peace returns when your outer world stops contradicting your inner one. The ultimate realization is not that people are exhausting. It's that misaligned relationships are. Once you understand that, everything rearranges itself. You stop apologizing for needing space. You stop romanticizing isolation. You stop chasing connection that costs you clarity. And in that balance, between solitude and selective connection, you find something rare. A life that feels quiet, but not empty. Protected, but not closed. Alone when necessary, and deeply connected when it matters. That is not avoidance. That is discernment. And once you see this, you can never again confuse relief with emptiness, or solitude with failure. If this shocked you, comment, awake, below. Like this if it articulated something you've never been able to explain. Comment, do you feel relief in solitude, or guilt for feeling it? Subscribe, because understanding yourself this deeply changes everything that comes next.